My name's Justin Perry from CSIRO. In 2008, we first started working on Cape York Peninsula, and it was under a small contract that was looking at fire and biodiversity. And we did the traditional thing, which was to turn up in an area, do our survey, go home again. Because we'd turn up for 2 weeks, we'd flog ourselves and work 20-hour days to get our contractual obligations done, which was to do 30 biodiversity sites, terrestrial biodiversity sites. At the end of that time, we were so exhausted and we'd burnt out the traditional owners and the rangers that are working with us, that there was no time to sit down and talk about things in the right context. So in 2012, we started a process of thinking about it more deeply with APN. And that's when, thankfully, the NERP project came up, and it allowed us to have the chance to delve into true engagement. One of the wonderful things that the NERP project allowed us to do was to have a specific trip where we just came out and talked to people, driving from one end of country to another and letting people lead that process. We suddenly got this amazing information about fire. Sid and Horace described an entirely different fire regime than what was being implemented as part of the contractual obligations for fire management. So environmental management funding from the big federal government programs were paying for Indigenous people to manage fire on their own country. And there was another process which was the fire and carbon project. So it was paying people to implement an early dry season burn over a late dry season burn. These were the two processes that were driving fire management. But in fact, you can still achieve those goals, increasing the patchiness of fire in the landscape, but it doesn't have to be in a random manner. Historically, traditionally, fire was never a random process. The fire breaks were in place to support very specific resource use, which in this case was yams.
Yeah, that's
Landtag's first yam.
There's a certain times we ban the grass and protect the yams. It's in August, eh? August. That's the time that the old people used to ban around the scrubby areas in August, because in August the vines are dry and the yams are ready to harvest.
This vine, this is the one that goes to yam. See that?
It's just to protect the fire from going into the scrub, and it started burning.
Fire breaker.
Yeah, making a fire break.
When the vines dry off, that's when you know you can burn. Before that, if you put a hot fire through, you can't see the vines, you can't find the yams. It's as simple as that.
In the old days, they used to do that, but now these days, not a people out here living. They're all back in Arak. We like to see young people go with us out to the country, and so we can teach them, or Sid can teach them, or I can teach them to find a yam, to follow an old vine like this.
Traditional owners are a part of the environment. They've been there for forever, and they'll be a consistent part of that area in the future. People like me come and go. We come out, we get a contract, we move in, we move out. We develop our understanding of the landscape based on that very short period of time. Whereas Indigenous people, traditional owners, have been there for millennia and will be a consistent part of that landscape in the future. So if people aren't engaged in that process, you're never going to get a consistent outcome on the ground. It's always going to be the opinion and the values of those external people that come and go. Whereas if you want consistent outcomes, you need to have people that are consistent in the landscape.
Just a young one. Just starting to grow.